Može stomala.
Was that Jay? What's this?
I'm going this way.
Baruch Hashem, we begin a new zman of our Chabura. No, I've never gave out a syllabus for this Chabura. For a good reason. But you also don't have any exams or papers. Because it's not a course, it's a sort of a flow. It's a flow of things that I feel Ruchnius together, what we're going through, to try to find his chaskus in this inyan of Kedusha, the world of Yosef HaTzadik. There is a certain limud that we're going to be doing in Mitzvah Hashem. We'll start hopefully, we might even start before Rosh Hashanah, with what I've been promising already for a couple of years, that the conversation with the kids. There's a certain limud that I saw that I think would be the right thing for that, and to help us work on that. But by way of psicha, of opening, of what this chabur really is all about. So there's a very, very famous igeris. There's a famous letter from the great Rosh Hashiva, Rav Yitzchak Hutner, Zechar Devracha, Pachid Yitzchak. It's a very famous letter. It's usually quoted, there's usually a sentence or two that's quoted from this letter. But I have found that most people have never actually seen the entire igeris. And many years ago, when this first came out, the letter was written in 1963, Tafshin Chav Gimel. But the actual Igrais was Tafshin Mem Beis in 1982 that I first was able to see the Igros were first published. And so back at that time, I found that this letter gave me a tremendous amount of chizuk, and I, over the years, often refer back to it. And I had a chizuk to begin the new zman with this, and then we'll go into the Seder Advarim.
So Moshe said that in sheet, so it's also on the phone if you don't have it.
Oh, so if you don't have, then it's on the back, it's on the phone. And shkoyach again to Moshe David for always taking care of this stuff. Okay. So, judging by the Rosh Hashiva's response, this is a response to a letter that he received from a Talmud who was going through some spiritual upheaval, was going through some nisyonos, and we'll get a sense of what the student wrote to the Rebbe, to the Rosh Hashiva, by the Rosh Hashiva's response. But there's always a story behind the story which we don't know. But the same way that you and I know that we always have a story behind our stories, there's always a story. And the story behind the story is much more interesting, but that's something which is very deep and very personal. but it generally connects to the inyan of Yosef HaTzadik when it comes to men. The story behind the story. And let's try to read this letter to learn it together. Given the way that it begins, not in typical Lithuanian style, keep in mind that Rav Hutner was only a partial Litvak. He was half Litvak and half Chassid, who grew up in Warsaw. He was the Ilui of Warsaw. I'm saying that in a loving way. All my Litvische friends should not get upset. I love Litvaks. My Rebbeim are all Litvaks. My wife is a Litvak. The family comes from Vilna, at least on the mother's side, so I just want to make sure we get along with everybody. Ahuvi Chavivi, my beloved, my dear one. Shalom Abraham. Mechtavcha higia liyadi, your letter reached me. Udvarecha higiu lelavavi, so beautiful. Rav Hutner had a poetic lashon. Remember, he was a Talmud of Rav Kook. When he went to Yerushalayim, he was by Rav Kook for that year. And he was learning in Chevron, but he was very close to Rav Kook. Mechtavcha higia liyadi, your letter reached my hands, but your words reached my heart. Udvarecha higiu lelavavi, your words reached my heart. Dalecha chavivi, you should know, my dear one, ki etzem mechtavcha, that the actual letter that you wrote, the fact that you wrote this letter, and the content of your letter, is misnagid uluchol hatiurim hanimtsoim bo, contradicts all the descriptions, the things that you describe in the letter. The letter that you wrote contradicts the content of the letter. Now, he's not saying that you're a liar. He's not telling us that you're a liar. So he says, so now I'm going to explain to you, what do I mean by that? That the very letter that you sent contradicts the content of the letter that you wrote. What do I mean by that? Because I'm not accusing you of lying. So what do I mean by that? So this part now is very famous, and I've mentioned it many times over the years. Ra'ah chaylehi etzleinu. Ra'ah chayle, it's a bad sickness, a disease. Shekar shemis askim anu b'tzadei hashleimus shel gedoleinu. So when we talk about the greatness of our gedolim, we read stories, we tell stories to our kids, to our students, about the greatness of when we speak about the shleimus, the different types of shleimus that we see, of greatness that we see by our gedolim, it's a sickness. What's the sickness? What we talk about is the sum total of their greatness. In other words, when they became great, and the greatness that we see. So, the Chavetz Chaim was clearing away the snow when he was a little boy so that everybody could, at 4 a.m, so everybody could walk to the base medrash. So we hear these stories of greatness, of shleimus. We only tell the stories of the darchei hashleimus, of the paths of their greatness, of their great ways. That's all we talk about. But we skip over the other story. The other story is the ma'avak hapnimi, the inner struggle that the tzaddik had on that path towards becoming great. We don't know that. On the medalgim, we skip ala ma'avak hapnimi she'es chaylo benavsham. We don't know the challenges, the struggles that they had to overcome, the storms that they went through inside of themselves to be able to get to that shleimus. We don't know that. It's very rare that a tzaddik would we see in any of the svarim that the Tarshim Chasav Baal Peh that they would allow us into that deeper story. It's very rare. You see a little bit by Rabbi Nachman, you see a little bit by cook how we were just doing on Erev Shabbos and the Chabur a little bit. It's very, very rare. The impression that we get by talking about the tzaddikim and the stories that we have, from the stories that we read, it would seem that that's how God created them. That was God created the tzaddik in that way, of the tzaddik. The same way we have a title that's, I don't like these titles, but you know the FFB, right? FFB. From birth. Which gives the impression, there's a poet that I like that wrote about this, she wrote about this, gives the impression that FFB, that you have a girl that she's an FFB, that when she was a baby, she was wearing already a long skirt and stockings. And she had long sleeves, and she was holding a tzedorah or a tillim. And that the parents said, wow, this baby, this baby is from birth. You would have that impression that that's what it means, FFB. And then the brother had a little baby boy, Mazel Tov, and the little baby boy came, and the nurse says, oh, you have a little boy. Strange, he's got already full-grown beard and payas, and sits us down to the floor. He even has trailers, and he's holding Bava Basra, and he's by the last Ahmed of Bava Basra, you know. And if it's necessary, all the doctors will say, Ashrecha, you gave birth to a from birth baby, a baby boy that's from birth. But Shlomo Melech didn't say that. He was smarter than all of us, and he said, or it says in Eiv, that in Eiv, he was also smart. It says in Eiv that Ayapar means that a person was born like a wild donkey. But when we're babies, we're just like wild animals. Wild animals. If you are zeicher to have children, and you are zeicher to be in the presence of that child and not run away and just leave him with your wife when the kid had a tantrum, then a human being is born as a wild creature, and throughout his entire life, he tries to work on himself. In the office, if you open the drawer, I want to read to you this. If you can open when I'm sitting on the left drawer, it says memo to self. I want to read you the poem. So the truth is that our entire lives, we're trying to. I don't like the word from that. We're trying to become Elachid and good people, and Elachid. That's an avoda for one's entire life, right? But what the Rosh Yeshiva is saying is that you would get the impression with Kabel, Kilu Yotsu Mitachas Yad HaYotzer, B'Kamosam Mitzvah. Like the Chofetz Chaim's mother said, when the Chofetz Chaim's he's a kind, I always send him on jobs. So the Chofetz Chaim, when the Chofetz Chaim was born, so you can imagine, like the nurses and the doctors, they knew how to say, they would say, oh, you know, this child is unbelievable. I think you should call him Chofetz Chaim, because it looks like he's going to have a perfect record when it comes to this diburim. Give me a second to find this. A second. The way she puts it is gewaldig. Oh, it's called FFB. Listen to this. You can take a picture of this. It's called FFB. She writes, this is from Ruth Lewis. What an expression, FFB, from birth. I see an obstetrician holding up a newborn baby. A girl, weighing 7 pounds, 3 ounces, wearing a long black dress to her ankles, black shawl, white apron, carrying a tiny sitter under one arm, already swaying piously over her tail. Alternatively, it's a boy, comes the cry of joy. 9 pounds, it's bigger, 9 pounds, 2 ounces, a stooped figure with a long white beard, long black coat and hat, a cane, spectacles perched on the tip of his tiny baby nose, chuckling over his Gemara. Listen, nobody is from birth, Shlomo Melech said. A person's born a wild young donkey. Rowdy, unruly, selfish, dirty, prey to each bad quality. Sure, it's great to be an FFB. We strive, pray that that's what our kids will be. But each one of us is born an FFP, far from perfection. Far from perfection. Very. FFP, far from perfection. That's how we're born. So what the Rosh Yeshiva is saying is that that's not the impression that we get when we hear the stories of tzaddikim, that they were born far from perfection. It's like Moshe Rabbeinu, the Smalei Abayis Oira. The Swarm tells us Moshe Rabbeinu had his milchamas. This is the other side, the other part of the story of Moshe Rabbeinu that we don't know. What it meant for him to live up to that or that was first shining. We don't know what that means. So the Rosh Yeshiva says, Hakol Mesoichim Mispalim Umerimim Al Neis is Taharas Aloshin Shal Bala Chavetz Chaim Zatzal. Everybody talks about and is mispoiled, is excited by the pure language of the Chavetz Chaim. Taharas Aloshin Chavetz Chaim's speech. Aval Mi Yodeya Min Kol HaMilchamas, but who knows about the wars? Hamavakim, the struggles, Hamachshalom, and the failures, Hanefilas, the Nefilas, Vahanesigos Lachor, and how many times he had setbacks. Shemotza Chavetz Chaim b'derech hamilchama shelo im yitzur hara. We don't know all of the failures, the nefilas, the comebacks, the setbacks of the Chavetz Chaim on this path that he had towards perfecting his speech. We know that the Chavetz Chaim was such a person that's the Chavetz Chaim that we know, but we don't know what he had with his Yetzar. We don't know what he went through with his Yetzar. We know a cloud. The Chazal tell us that kol hagol michaveiro, what? Yitzhak gadol. We know that. The greater the person, the greater the Yitzhak. It says in Pasuk, kol cheshek shlomo. Reb Tzaddik writes in Yosef HaTzadik, kol cheshek means a longing. Reb Tzaddik writes that the tzaddikim, especially from Tanakh, they had the biggest Yitzaros. They're the biggest balei taiva. We can't be masig the desire of Shlomo HaMelech. That the desires of David HaMelech and what those tzaddikim fought against to become Shlomo HaMelech. We have no asag because we don't have that part of the story. Moshe, he says, we don't know 1,000th of what, we don't even have an inkling of what did the Chavetz Chaim have to struggle with. What was his Indian? We don't know what his Indian was. The Chavetz Chaim went through to become the Chavetz Chaim. So he writes to the student that it's enough written, it's enough that I said for an intelligent person like you, to go from the Chavetz Chaim to other people besides the Chavetz Chaim, including yourself, that I don't know your milchamas. Everybody has their milchamas. Hatotzah mizahi kishenar bal ruach. The result of all this is kishenar bal ruach, bal she'ifa, bal tasisa. That when a young man who's a bal ruach, a ruchnistic person, bal she'ifa, a person who has aspirations, who wants to become better, bal tasisa means like bubbling, alive. When he sees within himself that he has failed at certain things, he has mechshalim. So again, the student wrote to his Rebbe, obviously, about some things that were not working out for him, were not going well. So the Rebbe is saying to him, Rashiva is saying to him that when a young man like yourself, you find in yourself setbacks and failures, nefilas, mechshalim, nefilas, you read this, obviously, the student wrote that he wrote to the Rosh Yeshiva that he doesn't feel that he is shosol b'beis Hashem. He doesn't feel that he is the person that he was when he was a yeshiva bach. He's no longer in yeshiva. Sounds like he's now going to work. And there are nisyonis in the office, even back in 1963. They're nisyonis. And he's not able to learn as much as he would like, as much as he used to. and whatever the Nephilis, the Yeridus that he was alluding to in his letter to the Rosh Yeshiva is writing to him back that when such a person like yourself finds that you're going through these Mechshal Nephilis Yeridus, it seems to you now, that's obviously what the student wrote to him, it seems to you that what? That you are no longer that person that you were in yeshiva, and you no longer are such an individual that is shosel, that's planted beveis Hashem. Shosel beveis Hashem. You're not shosel beveis Hashem. Which many, many, many thousands and thousands of our boys feel when they leave yeshiva. They feel when they leave yeshiva, they have to go to work or they go to the army. They feel that I'm not anymore shosel beveis Hashem. And what confirms that shift from being a yeshiva person to being a working person or whatever else you're doing is that you see I'm having certain nephilis in the office or whatever, in the army, wherever that person is. I'm going through certain things, certain nephilis, which I didn't go through when I was beveis Hashem, because I'm no longer shosel beveis Hashem. So the Rosh Yeshiva is addressing this. Because according to the imagination of this young man, he's saying to him, according to the imagination of this young man, Liyah shosel beveis Hashem, the meaning of shosel, planted, beveis Hashem, the meaning of that is, Perushahu lasheves b'shalvas hanefesh, al neos desha, is sitting b'shalvas hanefesh, with great spiritual tranquility. Al nois desha, which means like a beautiful, nice lawn, like in the park, so nice. But it means in Ruchnius, nois desha means everything is just perfect. Shalmei menuchais, tranquil, peaceful waters, a beautiful garden next to some river that's flowing in a nice way. V'lehenos mi yitzra hatov, who's enjoying the Yetzer HaTov. That's it. Just relaxing and enjoying the Yetzer HaTov. Kederach shetzadikim nenem mizev hashchina, the way that the tzadikim delight in the radiance of Hashem's light. Shatrosayim v'rosheim, the Mesibas Gan Eden, the big party that the tzadikim are enjoying when they're sitting in Gan Eden. And that's what you imagine. That's what you imagine it should be. That's what you imagine the definition of shosel beveis Hashem is. The definition of shosel beveis Hashem is that only the Yetzer HaTov is speaking to you, and everything is just right. Just right. That's called shosel beveis Hashem, and that's why you're writing to me that since you are going through turbulence, upheaval, and some Yeridus and Nephilis, then you've come to the conclusion that you are no longer a person who is shosel beveis Hashem. Lidach giza, lo lios murgas misaras hayetzer. Certainly not to be a person who's raging against the storm of the Yetzer Hara. Al derech hakosov shel b'meisem chavshi. The way you're describing it, what Rosh Yeshiva is alluding here to the pasuk and to the Gemara that talks about the pasuk, b'meisem chavshi means that a mace is chavshi min hamitzvos. The only person who's free and relaxed, so to speak, is someone who's dead. B'meisem chavshi. This world is not a world of being relaxed and free. You want to be relaxed and you want to have everything go just like that. Binas Deshiabit saying, or like the tzaddikim or Yoshvim, they're sitting in the next world, Vatrosayim Bereshayim, and they're V'nenim Miziv Hashchina. Okay, that's B'meisem Chavshi. So like Naftali Rosh should say, Naftali Rosh was very, very much wanted very, very badly to know what it was like in Olam Haba. It was like in Olam Haba. He kept on asking Hashem to show him in a dream what's the Metzias there for Olam Haba. And Kadosh Baruch Hu told him Naftali, he told him in his dream, if you want this, you can come. And the Rosh said, "Oh, okay. Not now. It's okay. I'll wait." Hashem said, "You want to see? You can come." This is not a world. This world is not a world of tzaddikim Yosef HaTzadik, v'nenim miziv hashchina. Whatever there is in life, whether it's work, whether it's family, whether it's ruchnias, whatever it is, It's not B'nai Desha Yarbi Tseini. It's just not. That Mei Menuchas Nahaleni. We ask, we hope, we daven, it should be better, it should be easier, but that's not what it's like. The only ones who have such a thing of nenim is a Shechina, and that's the Meisim Chavshi. That's when you're dead. Then you're Chavshi, then you're free of this world. Avodalecha Chavivi. But you should know, my dear one, Sheshorish Nishmoscha, that the root of your soul, Lo Hashalva Shehayetzatov, is not the tranquility and peace of the Yetzatov, Aladavka Milchamto Shehayetzatov. You were sent into this world not to enjoy the shalva, the peace of your Yetzatov, but to fight the war of the Yetzatov against the Yetzahar. To fight that war. Umechtav hayakar, and your precious letter, Hanilvav made Kemeya Edim, and so he's thinking, my Nechtav Yakar, what was it? I was writing about all my problems. My Yeridus, my Nephilas, right? That's what he was writing to Yoshiva about. The Yoshiva says, Mechtav hayaka, but your very wonderful letter. Hayaka Hanilva, Nilva means heartzik. Made bears testimony, Kemeya Edim. Like 100 witnesses. From your letter I could see, because it hurts you, and you're writing to me about it. That's what it means. The letter itself is contradicting what you wrote in the letter, that you're not Shosel Vez Hashem. Because I could see from your letter that you're in that war, that you're fighting that war. That you are a faithful soldier in the army of the Yetzatov, fighting against the Yetzahar. I see that from your letter. Ba'anglit, in English, Omrim is an expression which he wrote in the letter, lose a battle and win the war. Yes, you have taken some hits, and there are battles that you have lost. There are some battles, and there are days, and whatever it is, and there have been Nephilas and there have been Yeridus. And he says, yes, you have failed in the past. I'm going to tell you something. And you're going to be failing again. It's going to happen to you again. You're going to lose other battles. But he says, I don't want to open a mouth with a sudden, but he's saying, that's what life is about. There will be other failures in your life. And there are going to be some fronts of the war, battle fronts, that you're going to fall. You're going to be a casualty of that particular battle, of that skirmish, of that battle. Yes, it happened, and it's going to happen again. But I promise you, but after all of the defeats that you've suffered in different battles, you will eventually emerge from the war, when the crown of victory is on your head. You will eventually emerge victorious. And the prey, the enemy, is like dying between your teeth. Lose battles, but win wars. Lose battles, but win wars. This is the most famous part of the letter. That says in Mishlei that the tzaddik falls, Sheva Yipol Tzaddik v'kam. The tzaddik falls 7 times and gets up. V'atipshim, the fools, choshvim ki kavanoso b'derech rabusa. The way that the tipshim, the way fools read this pasuk is, even though, he says, rabusa, b'derech rabusa, what afa pisha Sheva Yipol Tzaddik, that even though the tzaddik has fallen 7 times, even though he's fallen 7 times, Mikomakom, nevertheless, will come. He gets up. That's how the fools read this pasuk. That's how they type this pasuk. But those who are wise know, Yodim Heitev, Shakavanahu, that's not the correct reading of the pasuk. Shakavanahi, Shemuhus Hakimash La Tzadiki, Derech Hasheva Nefila Shalom. Those who are wise understand. And what Shlomo HaMelech was saying was that in order to become a tzaddik, you must go through 7 nephilas. 7 correspond, of course, to this world. That means this is a world of nephilas. And what Shlomo HaMelech was saying is, if you want to be a tzaddik, there are going to be many battles that you're going to lose. Lose battles, win wars. You're going to lose. They're going to be nephilas, they're going to be yeridas. The path towards becoming a tzaddik it's not mei menuchas, it's not no's desha. It's a battlefield. It's Gaza. It's not mei menuchas. It's Gaza. It's hand-to-hand combat, house to house. That's what this world is. V'yaris kol asher also v'nei tov ma'od. V'yaris kol Hashem, when He created the world, v'yaris kol asher also. It's only when the whole picture is finished. Hashem looked at everything, He said, tov ma'od. And Chazal say on that, in the Medrash, tov z'yetzer tov, ma'od z'yetzer har. It's a famous Chazal. And people who are look at Chazal in a shallow way have tremendous trouble understanding how could that possibly be. That doesn't stem with any of the things that I read in the film newspapers or magazines. How can it be that the Yetzer Tov is the Yetzer Tov? Ma'od is Yetzer Har. Ma'od is Yetzer Har. One of the great Bali Musa, this past summer I had this course. I go every summer to speak to the Chevra in Camp Hask. It's a very, very, very beautiful. I always call it Planet Hask. The whole Metzias there is something remarkable. A dear friend of Judah, Michelle, the other Chevra there. It's a very big place of honesty, of chesed. It's a great place. I love going there. I go every summer. Talk to the kids there, to the counselors, to the staff, and I was talking to them about the milchama that we're going through, and what it means to be in a personal milchama of Yosef HaTzadik. We're talking about that the Rashi was writing about, and I spoke to them. That's exactly when the Al Maisa happened. Just a week before was when the Maisa happened. That the guy shot Trump in the ear. That was the week that it was during the summer they got shot. And it was Moshe Shabbos, right? I think that's when I found out about it. It was Moshe Shabbos. And my daughter Shani was with us in the bungalow. And Shani said, oh, she said, Daddy, you know what happened? That somebody shot Donald Trump. So I said, I thought he was killed or something. So she said, no, he's alive. Thank God he's okay. But there was already a clip of what happened, because already a few hours, I think, he used to be in the day somewhere, and this happened. It wasn't in New York. I forgot where it was. Pennsylvania. So it was. They already had it after Shabbos. They had a clip of it, and she said, and I don't like to usually see these things, but she said, you have to see this. So I was watching it. It was a few minutes after Abdullah, I think I was watching this. And I saw what happened. There was a pachet. How did such a thing happen? I don't know. Something went wrong over there. If that lady gets elected, it'll be sure to happen many, many more times. If something went wrong. But then they showed that he was hit somehow. Right, thank God he wasn't hit in the head. He was hit, and he went down. And the next thing you see, that the guy standing up, and he's shaking his fist with blood all over his face and screaming, what? Fight. I watched this 10 times at least. I was so nespoiled from it. So you can say whatever you want about the guy. He's a Vels Meshiga. There's so many things to get. There's probably nobody that ever lived that had so many things written about him like this and like that. I'm not talking about, his midas and whether you want to make a shidduch with him or anything. I'm talking about that you can't fake that. Because b'shas ma'aseh, if you're bleeding and there's a guy that shot you, usually they just take you away in a stretcher and you're grateful to be in the car and to be alive on the way to the hospital, thinking that maybe I'm just alive now and it's going to be like, by the time I get there, I'm dead. But to be able to stand up, like to push these guys away and like fight, and there's blood coming out of your head, it's a chashuva thing. There's something about that that's very remarkable. Again, it's not coming from Nefesh Elokis. There's something about it that I found to be very, very inspiring. Such a thing that a person did. So I was talking to the kids and asking about this a little bit because it just happened. I was talking to the kids about it, and I said that if you look in the Madregas Adam, from the Alter from the Vardik, Tzadik Yisod his life or something. Yossi Yusel Horvitz from the Vardik, he lived in the woods by himself for a long time. He's a remarkable person. The Alter from the Vardik. So he wrote, those people who understand what an Isayan is, what it means to have a test, to go through a test, know that there's no greater mesikus in the world, there's nothing sweeter in life than to go through a test and to survive the test. There's no greater mesikus in the world. There's nothing sweeter. He said, not only that, he says, the tzaddikim look forward to those tests. Even though we say now, for us, Al-Tevil needs something whether he's because we're afraid it's going to be bizyonis. And nobody wants Khalil, there should be a test that doesn't have a happy ending. What does it mean, the mesikus? What did the Vardika, the mesikus of a melchama, he was saying? Which even right now, what's going on with Eretz Yisrael, it's a terrible, terrible tzara that we're in. And all these almanis and Yisayim and soldiers without arms, without legs, what's going on. It's terrible. What we saw from Rav Kook, which we learned a little bit together when the war started, there's a certain mesikus, the sweetness is not the suffering, God forbid. The sweetness comes from a certain clarity that you have when you survive in Nisayan and you get up and you say, fight. There's a certain determination, a certain clarity. That the Radhika says that those are the only times in life when you truly feel alive. Like all of us would like to have, like the rest of the day. Today should be B'nais Deshi Abid saying Menuchas and whatever it is. Well, the kids are going to behave. Your wife has no tinnitus. I don't know, whatever it is. The steak came out medium rare. Whatever your Indian is, you understood the taisvis. Whatever your plan is for the day. Whatever the plans, all of us is Sunday morning, so everybody has a plan. Most chevra are not going to work, or some have to work at home, whatever it is, but it should be B'nai is der sheyabit seini, hamei menuchs in ha'aleini. But those are not the most geschmacked days of our lives. The same way that people think with vacation is going to be like this. No, the mesikus, the greatest mesikus that a person can have in life is when you win, when you go through a war and you're scarred and you're dirty and you come out and you say fight. I'm in the Milchama. Yeah, I took a hit, but I got up. And I'm in the fight. I got up, I'm in the fight. And I shared with them, I think I might have told you this last week, so I don't remember. But I told the Chavah, the kids, I told them that I read somewhere years ago that there was a father, this guy, I don't know where it happened exactly, but that he had a son that was not a Gavin. He felt he wasn't strong, whatever. So he took him where they lived. He took him to some big master of martial arts, some old man, somewhere in China that's like a master of. And so he took his son. I guess he did. He took his son to this rabbi, to make him into a Gavin, to make him into a man. So the old Chinese master, the old man said, you have to leave him. You have to leave him over here for a year. If you want to leave him with me for a year, it's a whole malacha. You can leave him for a year. So the father said, okay. And the kid was there for a year. And at the end of the year, the parents were invited to come, and there was going to be a thing between the master and the kid. So the father comes there. This is what happened over the year, and the kid throws a punch. The Rebbe grabs his arm, bangs him onto the thing. Kid throws a kick, grabs the Rebbe grabs the leg, and throws him out like a kaparas. And then another one, boom. And then the master gives a thing, and the kid. So the kid's on the floor, gets a lump. So the father goes over to the Rebbe and says to him, I paid money. I sent my kid to you for a year. You should make him to a gaver rabbi, to a man. And all I see is on the mat, on the floor 50 times, slammed onto the floor 50 times. So the Chinaman said, the old man said, you see the kid on the floor 50 times. I see a kid getting up 50 times. That's what it means to be a gaver rabbi. That's what it means to be a gaver rabbi. That's what we say in Tillim. We say in Tillim, every day we just said it, Lam Netzeh, Hema Krov Nafol, Vanachnu Kamlev in this Ida. Our enemies Krov Nafol, they fall down, they break. Vanachnu Kamlev in this Ida, and we get up and we're strengthened. So how come it doesn't say Vanachnu Loi Nafalnu? The Chinese guy didn't say this right. But how come it doesn't say Vanachnu Loi Nafalnu? Hema Krov Nafol, right? The Palestinians Krov Nafol. Hamas Krov Nafol. Vanachnu should say what? Lo Nafalnu. We don't fall. That's what we'd like to see for our kids also, right? Lo Nafal. Doesn't say that. It says Hema Krov Nafol. Vanachnu Kamnu. We also fell. We had times that we fell, but Kamnu. We got up. That's Am Yisrael. Nobody in the world can come through their billion miles of Am Yisrael. Anachnu kamnu, and they say that. Who in the world could say after what happened in those years, 1939, 1945? What does that mean? The whole world, and they're trying to do it again. Anachnu kamnu, and they say that. My son Ushi told me that there's some guy, some podcaster, that came out a whole thing, went all over the place. That he's not only he's not a Holocaust denier. He's saying that Hitler Yamach Shmo was a humanitarian. I'm not feeling that Hitler. I said I don't want to hear this guy. And there's this woman that she used to be with Ben Shapiro, and now she's on her own, and she's saying things that were from the Middle Ages that it's hard to believe. That Hitler didn't want to kill the Jews. He said Hitler didn't want to kill the Jews. He wanted to get them another place because he didn't want them. That's true, but he didn't know how to handle so many people, so he wanted to find ways to kill them. That's humanitarian. That's like a new spin. This now Hitler Yamach Shemo is like works for the Red Cross. Understand? Humanitarian aid. And after all that happened, Kamnu v'nisaidat. It's such a shame because the young people are now growing up now seeing Holocaust survivors the way that we grew up. It's such a shame because I grew up surrounded by heroes. Not the heroes on the basketball court, the football field. Heroes. By real heroes. One of the guys sent me a clip of a 103-year-old survivor that she was talking about Hashem's Bar. Just sent to me last night. The kids now are growing up. They're not seeing those kind of heroic Jews. They're seeing different types of heroes. There's something that heroism of Vanachnu Kamnu v'nisayda. We hear a story about a soldier that was in the hospital for months, and he's fighting with them to get back into the milchama, because as terrible as a milchama is, there's a certain feeling of being alive, that when you come out and you fight, and you're going to build up, like they came out from the war and they fought to build religious families, not like it is now, where everything is like this. When I was growing up, and it's not so long ago, when I was a kid, We didn't have all the kosher, but the kosher food wasn't kosher. In our community, in our neighborhood, which is all from people, in our neighborhoods were filled with from people, there were only a handful of sukkahs. A handful of sukkahs. And to go send to yeshiva when they didn't have any money to send to yeshiva. Their moms didn't have money to send to yeshiva. And people were mice enough for saving every penny, not having a piece of fleishies on Shabbos so my kid could go to yeshiva. After what they went through. Because they said we're going to build a new world of Torah and mitzvahs. That's the Jewish version of fight, fight, fight. And that's why those Jews were indestructible. Indestructible is when you expect that life is going to be and that Shalsum Beis Hashem. It's not everybody's writing books now talking about what's going to be when the guy leaves yeshiva. How is he going to survive when he leaves yeshiva? How come throughout all of history there was never a question like that? Until now, how come there wasn't a question like, what are you going to do? How are you going to manage going to work? How come for thousands of years we never had that question? How are you going to be able to raise a family? You're a guy. Do what you have to. Guys are not guys. Girls are not girls. The bullum of what we're living in. Do what you have to. Take care of you. Take charge of your life. But when you think that all of life is sitting in this medrash, and that means to be Shalsum Beis Hashem, and Shalsum Beis Hashem means that it was gewaltic, and the worst thing you ever heard in your life was when your Rebbe told you that's not the pshat and taisva, that's what you think. And that was the biggest insult, and even that you had a hard time dealing with. And coming back to the husband on Sunday, coming back to his wife, and the wife says, "What are you doing? Where are you? You know what's going on here for the last 2 hours? Where are you hanging out?" He said, "I was always going to a shir." "You're going to a shir? You know what I'm doing here? You know what I'm?" Oh, so this guy has to deal with the angry wife, with the disappointed wife. So we have to write a book for him. How to answer your wife when she's disappointed in you. How to deal with a child that doesn't agree with you. Because in yeshiva, everybody agrees with you. You want to learn? Sure, let's learn. Want to be mechavusa? Yeah, why not? You want to go to Dougie's a little bit? I'm good for a nice hamburger. It's gewaldig, no? Binas deshe yabi saying, al mei menuchs nalein. And then you get married. And then all of a sudden, you start to hear more and more, no. I'm not even talking about the inside story, which we don't talk about the rabbin. What goes on in the private lives of people. And the angry, disappointed men, without going into any problem. But their wives suffer from. And life is not mei menuchas. So never in history did we, like, what are we going to do? Because if you didn't expect any wars, and you wanted to be al mei menuchas naleini, maybe nowadays more than ever you can get away with it, especially if your father has money or something, your father-in-law, maybe you can get away with it for a couple of years or something. But the metzias of life is milchama. That's what the Ramchal writes at the very beginning of Sishon, that we're placed into this world to go to war. That's what the Rashi was writing to. And when you expect that, and you know it, and you brace yourself, and you go in, and you go into the war, sometimes you take a hit, you get a bullet in the ear, or wherever it is, and you fall down, you get up, and you fight. V'nachnu kamnu v'nisaydav. And not only that, but there's no greater masikis in the world, there's nothing sweeter in the world than getting up after you fall down. Husband and wife had a fight, and it didn't go well. You talk honestly to each other. You work it out, and you apologize. And you say, I was wrong. And then that masikis that you have in that relationship is much deeper than when you were just doing nothing on vacation. She had tinnitus, like, how come you want fleishigs? We had fleishigs 4 nights in a row. I want milchigs. The big discussions that take place around the hotel lobby. No, that's the meaning of life. Sitting in a hotel lobby somewhere. You think I'm going to bring up Pesach now? Because they don't want the Milchama of Pesach. Pesach should be what? Al mei menuchas nalein. I'm going to take you a hit. I'm going to be on the floor. I'm going to have to go digging here for some dirt. I'm going to have to go like that. Me? I didn't sign up for that. I signed up for a May Menuchas program. And the May Menuchas program is that they bring you your food. They clean the chametz, you think. They clean the chametz. They bring you, they burn the oven for a half hour. Or an hour. They bring you they're not going to do it like your wife would do it. Or your mother did it. They bring you the food. And then they have the whole program set out for you. You're going to have to see your kid for 7 days. They have the whole thing. Where they said, you want to know where your kid's going? That doesn't make a difference. He has a passport if you need it. Just get him out of here. And you have infinite access to the coffee room and to the pool. And so, because Pesach, I didn't sign up for having a war to get out of Mitzrayim. I wanted to be taken al kanfei in the sharm. It's a lo halech kachen. It's a lo halech kachen. That's not how it is. And not only that, those people. I'm not saying people go to people's. I understand people have to go sometimes, but that way of thinking, those are the most unhappy people in the world. Because whenever they get a punch, they're miserable, they're broken, they're crying, mommy, mommy, mommy. Because they're not warriors, they're not fighters. They're not fighters. I said to her, there was a boy that was crying to me, complaining to me right after I had just met a soldier. I was talking to a soldier who was there for 7 months, and he's going back after Sukkot. So I was talking to him, and then after I spoke to a bacher, and the bacher was complaining to me about something and I couldn't help myself. It wasn't nice, but I said, I really wish you would have been in on this conversation I have with the guy who was here before you. Like, you're falling apart from this. I don't want to tell you what it was, but you're falling apart from this Indian. You should have been here just as an observer to hear the conversation. But this guy was, and you know something? He's your exact same age. Our boys could use a good war. God forbid. You understand what I mean? Chas v'chalil. It would make them into men very, very quickly. And then the battles that they have throughout their lives, they would take it on. They would fight those battles. They would know how to fight those battles. You have a person that Lorelena grew up without parents. The Jews like that. They grew up, their parents died when they were young, when they were little. And they had to build for themselves a life, and make for themselves a life. Being taken, there's grandparents, and there's an uncle, there's an aunt, a friend, and they're dragging around. So they say, so you get a call about a shidduch. No, I don't want to make a shidduch with them because they have bad mazel. This guy grew up without parents, he has bad mazel. I want my daughter should have a family that has nice, And he's got no parents here. You want to match my daughter, you're going to match up with some Yosef? He said, buddy, you just missed out on the match of the century. Because this Yosef is somebody. You know why? He's somebody. Ki avivi mi azavuni. Hashem yasfeini. Boy, he's been through battles and he's come out as a Jew that Shemitah mitzvahs. Got blood coming out from both ears, not one ear. And from his heart. Fight. Those are the best shidduchim in the world. They don't want those shidduchim. That's exactly what the Rashiva is. I went far over, I'm sorry. That's exactly, now you can get in trouble, I was worried about. That's exactly, just go over the sentence and we'll finish the letter next week in Mr. Shem. He says, that's exactly what he's saying. But I have to just read this sentence. He said, this sentence. So that's Toiv Ma'oid. That's the best shidduch. So he says, Ahuvi, my beloved. Look how he writes those here. I'm holding you next to my heart. The lochesh boznech, and I'm whispering into your ear. If you would have written to me a letter about how much you're accomplishing with your Torah and your learning and your mitzvahs, what a big tzaddik you are, I would have said, thank you, I got a good letter from you about all your mitzvahs and your learning. Now you sent me a letter all about your failures. Hineni oimer shekibalti mimcha mechtav tov ma'od. Now I can tell you that I received a letter that's tov ma'od. It's a very good letter. Very good doesn't mean that I'm happy you got shot. That's not. But if you're in the fight, and there's nothing sweeter than being on the team, and Am Yisrael is the winning team. All right, go team.
Do you think we can put the real team? One, two, 4.
We continue.
Yeah, I'm gonna finish.
One, 2, 4.
Yeah.